Okay, you good?
I did
You
my
did your
eye cream and I did smelling salts.
Do you want to do smelling salt?
No.
Okay. I'll do one real quick.
You want this one?
Yeah.
You want the little one?
No, I want the one that. Oh, is this the one
The
that's
Skull
terrible?
Crusher.
Is this the bad one?
It's the good one. Oh,
Did you ever do this?
What's that?
Like smelling salts. Do you ever see like when people pass out, they break the thing under their nose and they wake up?
Oh, okay.
It's just like straight ammonia,
Okay.
which is in our atmosphere, but just not to this concentrated degree. Oh, that was
that was the super strong one.
I thought it was the other one.
No.
Yeah, let me try it. Why not?
All right.
For some fun. Just 'cause
They do it a lot in gyms. I don't know if you knew that.
Why? What's the importance of
He's
doing
the
that?
guy.
So I don't know exactly what it does, but it basically just
Just keep doing this thing. I don't know.
I think it like oxygenates your blood. It wakes you up. It really heightens your senses. So it gives you, it basically increases your blood flow, increases oxygen to the brain, and
Right.
it gives you this sense of energy, euphoria that helps you really kind of, if you're sluggish, if you're trying to do something, you're sluggish, if you're trying to wake up, if somebody's knocked out, it kickstarts the system. So
I guess. We don't know how it works. We just know what it does.
Yeah.
This is what kickstarting looks like.
Well, that sounds like good chemistry.
it is. It's great. It's science.
Science.
Yeah.
So, okay, thanks, man. So Ushu Mukelo.
That's a name.
It's a beautiful name.
That's a great name.
Thanks, guys.
So I ran into you, Alex Molfettis
Right.
is like, hey, you should talk to my friend Ushu. And I think we texted each other.
Yeah.
And then we met up and hung out for like 4 or 5 hours.
Right. We just had stories and
Yeah, it was beautiful.
yeah, it was.
How did you get to Scranton? I know it's a big question.
Yeah.
It'll probably cover a little bit of time.
I don't think it's a big question. I think it's a story.
Yeah, let's tell a story.
Let me just break it short. So that way it's very easy for us to get how I left Congo and came here. But my father was in the US in the Congolese army from 1990 to 95, and war began at least at the end of 95, 96, and in 97, at least in May.
95, 96, 97, there was... So for people who don't know that there was a war.
There was a war, yes,
Yeah.
correct. And just to go a little below 95, so let's go down to 94. In 94, there is a Rwandan genocide, and the Hutus and Tutsis busy fighting. The Hutus kill millions of Tutsis. That was terrible. And
That was Rwanda, right?
that is in Rwanda. Now, many of these Hutus flow into Eastern Congo as refugees when the current President Kagame takes over Kigali. He was the de facto president, but for at least from 1984, let's say June to 1989, he was the Minister of Defense and also the Vice President, but he was the de facto president of the country because the then President Pasteur Bizimungu was, I think, incapacitated. He had some mental issues going on, so he couldn't do much. And, having lost most of his ethnic, people, Kagame was very, he did most of the things with an iron fist. He became this powerful military leader and, assumed full power in 2000, and he's been a president since then. But the reason why I'm telling that story is because I think most of the issues we have in Eastern Congo today, most of the conflict is as a result of the conflict that began in Rwanda, not in 1984 to be precise, but it's been going back to 1959 Rwandan Revolution, where these two ethnic groups have been fighting each other. Now, with this influx of people from Rwanda, mostly the Hutu, people belonging to the Hutu ethnic group, they go into Eastern Congo. You have, rebellions and, Kagame is saying, well, these people have to leave. They're a threat to my country. He's sending troops there. So it's a very complicated story. But the thing is, Rwanda and Uganda did finance, they armed Laurent Désiré Kabila's militia that saw him take over power in Kinshasa.
So two countries funded another country's militia.
They funded a rebel group,
Yeah.
and the rebel group went and overthrew the government. But it wasn't an overthrow because Mobutu was extremely sick. He was having an advanced prostate cancer then. So he just left the country and went into exile in Morocco in May of 1987. So during that time, there was a lot of turmoil. My father had actually quit the military. He wasn't in government. He was a mere teacher, and our village came under an attack. And you know
Your
that,
village came
our
under
village,
attack.
yes. So I lost my mom.
Wait, how old were you?
I was a little boy. I think I was maybe 3 then. I was
You were
3.
3 years old.
Yeah.
And do you remember anything about it?
I don't think I have the full story. I was a little boy, and my father did all he could to, you know, make sure we do not have, you know, the whole picture of how the war broke out. But, you know, he told us what happened. But what I know is we did escape through a window. You know, we trekked for miles through the jungle in order to get to Uganda. And, you know, we stayed at a transit. It's called a transit camp, where refugees stay for a little bit before they actually go to the real refugee camp or refugee settlement.
So if I can stop you real quick, how many
Mm-hmm.
people are in your village? How many people live in your village at that time? Best guess.
So again, this is in the jungle. There's smaller villages. You're
Yeah.
not looking at the size of Scranton, but you know,
Sure.
yeah, it's smaller than maybe 10,000, but yeah,
10,000
yeah,
people.
yeah,
And then then people just show up.
yeah, and you know, a rebel group shows up and it's killing people. It's asking for money, asking for things, and you know, if you refuse to offer whatever you have, you know, they use a machete or something to kill you, or they shoot you dead. You know, anything can happen. But it was tragic
And this is like
stories.
peaceful people just sitting there.
These are peaceful people. You know,
Yeah.
they mostly do trading of food items, and maybe, you know, if they do mining, there is some gold mining. There is diamond mining, could be anything. Many of these villages, if you look at the maps of the conflict in Eastern Congo, you'll see that there is a relationship between maybe where nonprofits are highly concentrated, mostly where the UN is doing most of its work, rebel groups, operations. You'll see most of that stuff is just within, you know, the East. And there is a relationship, and the relationship is there is presence of a lot of mineral wealth in the region.
So it's got rich resources.
Absolutely. There is
Okay.
abundance of resources there.
In abundance.
Yes. So yeah, getting back to the story, that's what happened, and that's how we got in Uganda. And we stay at the transit camp in Kisoro for a little bit, and then you know we packed on trucks, the lorries, these heavy duty trucks, and you know we transported to Kiangwali refugee settlement. It's a refugee settlement. There's a difference between a settlement and a refugee camp. So we came from a settlement. And a settlement is a place, it could be the size of Scranton. And I do think Kiangwali is like bigger than Scranton because it has
Really?
more people. It has, I think if you include everyone that lives there, it comes close to 1.2 million people.
Yeah, Scranton's
In a
only like
refugee
60,000.
settlement?
Yes.
Yeah.
It's a settlement.
And
And
they're
hear-
all coming from Congo?
Congo, Sudan, we have a few Rwandans.
Some all over
Yeah.
that region. of
You
Africa.
have very few
everybody's-
Kenyans.
Everybody's either walking or packed onto vehicles.
Everyone is living correct. So when you're coming with on trucks, like the way it was then. But recently things have changed a little bit. The UN has invested in transportation infrastructure. They've bought very huge buses that will transport refugees from these transit camps or the borders direct to refugee settlements or refugee camps, whatever they have to go. But when we get in Kiangwali, it was a jungle. There was nothing, you know, like you had to cut down trees and bushes to build a house and do most of the stuff. And the population was very small. And then the host community, who are mostly Banyoro, the Nyoro people of the Bunyoro kingdom, which was a very big kingdom, let's say, 2,000 years ago.
I never even heard of this.
Right. This was a very powerful kingdom in that area. And they were very hostile to the new refugees who were being brought there. There was stories of cannibalism if you walked, past 6.
Cannibalism
Yeah,
between 1996 and now?
Correct. Yeah. They were eating people, like, let's say 96, when refugees started flowing in to, around 2000 and way to 2005 or even 7.
Was that because of hunger?
I don't know.
You just know it happened.
It was
it more so out of animosity that they were coming to their land?
I would think so. Correct. Yeah, it was a hate towards people that come from another country and they're taking over land and they think the land belongs to their king. So it was a retaliation and yeah, driven by hate of other people.
In Africa?
Yes.
How do you get to that point? How do you get to a point where man, so many questions. How do you get to a point where that is the environment in which you live? I mean, you came from a peaceful village,
right?
And then all of a sudden there's these groups of rebel, militias, army groups that are just roaming all over the country? Like, did you have a national military? Was there some sort of structure there that could have prevented it that wasn't working, or like, how did it get to that point?
Now, President Mobutu, a dictator for 32 years, wasn't completely bad. We had, a working military.
Not completely bad.
Right. He was not completely bad. And there is a reason, I think, if time allows, I'll explain that.
Time allows, brother.
Right. So the thing is, when President Mobutu took over in 1967, he's there and he builds a military. We had almost every branch you'd think of. I don't know if he was copying the US, but there was a lot of
I'm sure the US had an influence.
Of course, yeah. They installed him.
Oh, did they? In the 60s?
They did. Well, the CIA. He was a CIA guy. But the thing is, President Mobutu, was, I think, somehow a bureaucrat. He was a mix of everything. So the country was good. If you look at the 70s, for example, our economy was working. And I think the value of one Zaire, which was our currency then, was good. People would buy things. It had value. But at the same time, when he began getting sick, which was, I'd take it back to like maybe the 90s, all the way to when he leaves the country in May of 97, things were, in shambles. Things were collapsing. The generals became too corrupt. None of his sons would even help, assume power and get things together. So there was a vacuum because of his sickness. And that's when things started, collapsing one at a time. Also, I think there was a problem. He brought many of his family members and people from his tribe very close within government. And that did not help anything. They were just there to eat the money. They were embezzling funds. There was, a very high, sense of nepotism. You got something, whether it was in the military or within government, if you're very close to Mobutu's family. And that was, that's the problem with Mobutu and his regimes. He was very nepotic. He embezzled funds. Some estimates have it between, 4 billion to 15 billion. Some of the money he did. He was a very rich head of state. No one had that level of money, so he had his own records. But the thing is, when he began getting sick, things really went bad. We lost our military, we lost our government, everything was, and that all began with a conference called Conférence Nationale Souveraine Exécutoire. And that conference was called to bring together, to lower tensions actually between his government and the opposition. And he did cry, and he said something that I think a lot of people don't pay attention to. He said, understand my emotions, when he was crying during his speech in that conference. He said, I think some people do not understand this country. They do not understand what's going on. They do not understand these external forces that are trying to destabilize my government. And if you think it's about democracy, wait until I leave. And we've paid a big price since he left.
What? If you think it's about democracy, wait until I leave.
Correct. And he was right.
The governmental structure there was less reliant on a system of government, a countrywide government, and it really relied on the head of state.
Correct.
The head of state really set the tone for everything.
Absolutely.
Okay.
And that's something that I do think if I throw my head one time into the Congolese politics, I want to change it. I think that's wrong. We have a unitary system of government where everything is determined at the capital. The president says something and it's final. And he said it. He said, I'm a Bantu. And for us, the Bantu, we have kings. And what the king says is final.
Oh, so he thought he was royal and...
Of course he was. The way he did his things, his dressing, his way of walking, his style of leadership in general was royal.
So Americans don't have a concept of... They don't understand because they've never been through it. It's not their fault that they don't understand. Like, they don't know what it's like to live under that, because everyone around here feels in this country is like, we have freedom and liberty and we can say what we want and do what we want, and blah, blah, blah. And that we can vote and we can make a difference and blah, like we have a say. What the average citizen in from your country, did they have any say in anything that happened with their government?
Not at all.
Zero.
Zero. Well, so we do have our deep state, and I think our deep state is.
You guys have a deep state
All right,
too?
we do.
Oh, all right.
Well, it's not the military. It's not. It's nothing like that.
It's just a bunch of
It's
people
just-
who are pulling
It's a bunch
strings.
of families with big money,
Yep.
Yeah.
and they run the show. They're the ones that determine who is going to be the next president. They do most of the deals. They're very connected to Western governments because they probably own mines or rebel groups.
They own rebel groups.
Correct, yes. And some of these families actually have their members of families, in parliament and in the Senate, earning big money. Tell me this. Why is a Congolese senator doing nothing, getting paid $10,000 every month? For what?
I don't know.
Right? I walk every day. I walk my ass off here in Scranton every day.
You walked here today.
Right.
Yeah.
I'm just saying, I go do my job, and every week I'm earning, it's not too much money if I aggregate it to, the 4 weeks in a month. Why would a senator doing nothing in Kinshasa get paid $10,000 a month? How? For what? So you see these, you start to see these patterns, and there is something wrong with the government. But that's the establishment. That's the deep state that we have in our country. It's these powerful families with money that have been running the show since the 60s. These were people very close to the colonial government, the Belgians, and they've never been to the side of the Congolese people. You can't change them today. What you need is to replace these families if you really want that country to proceed. The whole idea of democracy is just, I think it's in theory, but nothing in practice, and they know it.
How is your government installed? So you said you have a parliament, you have a Senate,
Correct.
and you have a president.
Mm-hmm.
So
A very powerful president.
yeah, yes.
Right.
So do you vote?
We do vote, but your vote means nothing. So we did have elections in, was that in January of 2019, right?
What kind of world are
So
we
the
living in?
the president who was the president then,
Yeah.
Joseph Kabange Kabila, the son of a former rebel leader who overthrew Mobutu in 1997, becomes the president in 2001 after his father is assassinated, and he's there for 19 years. So in 2019, the guy teams up with the son of a former opposition stronghold, Tshisekedi, and they strike a deal. It's like, listen, I'm going to step down because there's too much pressure. People want me out, but protect me, I'll let you in, and I'll be in charge of the defense. I'll watch the economy a little bit. I'll have my own spot in the country. You don't have to come and check anything there. I'll be as independent as I can. I'll watch the military. I'll watch everything, but you just be there. So they strike a deal. He gets protection. He goes to a place called Kingakati, which is, I think, his own piece of land, a very huge piece of land. He's doing farming. He has animals. He's welcoming visitors who come as tourists. I think they pay him money. The government has no say on Kingakati. It reminds me of the British Protectorate in Uganda. But, he has his own, a world of its own kind. He's just having his own piece of land, doing everything. He's very safe there. Now, we do have this puppet president who is basically doing nothing because the guy still has a hold on the defense. He has, a huge chunk of folks in parliament and in the Senate who support him. He's still very powerful, but he's an ex-president. He's also earning. He's getting, too much money every month for doing nothing. I think he's crowned the senator for life. I don't know what that means. And he's there. So deals, right? So we did have a deal in 2019. We did not have an election. It wasn't democratic at all. Two people made a deal, and one replaced the other, and the one who replaced is now the president right now. Tell me if that's democracy. Also, if you look at how the whole thing happened, and we look at the results, there is a guy that won by over 60%, and that's Martin Fayulu, who was supposed to be the president right now. He did not, because he was very opposed to the former president, and he said openly that he would want to see that guy in jail. He lost.
At 60%, he lost.
Yep. So there is...
I know I live in America, and I was taught math here.
Right.
As far as I know, that's a win, 60%.
60% is a win, correct. It's over 51%.
So how did the government explain that to the people?
Well,
how did they explain this guy got 60%, but he's the new president?
Right, but there is no reason to explain. Why should you explain? The whole John Locke theory of,
Oh my God, you're right.
social contract theory.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, those things don't work.
We're talking
Yeah,
John
he knows
Locke.
John- yeah, he knows Locke.
Okay.
Yeah.
We're getting into
Yeah, I
it.
told you.
Okay.
I said Ushu's the best.
We should go back to,
Let's do it.
Let's revise this, look at the second treatise of government. You know,
Yeah.
power has to come from people. I think that's what Locke was trying to insist. But I do think in a country, we are more of like, we need the Leviathan, like, Thomas Hobbes wrote in his famous, letters that he wrote, like the papers he wrote. But to be honest, I do think when you talk about democracy in our country, it's a complete lie. There is no democracy there, and people know it. Mobutu said, we are Bantu, and for the Bantu, what the king says is final. Now, let me, if you guys can allow me, let me just break that a little bit.
You can do whatever you want, Ushu.
We are mostly Bantu in Congo, the ethnic group.
Okay.
We are subdivided into tribes. For me, I belong to the Lega. The Lega people, are a decentralized society. Each group has, within the Lega has its own king. My mom is from, a royal family. It's, one of the Lega groups, they have a king, and that's where my mom comes from. Now, it's been like that for a long time. And I usually say this, nothing racist. These days it's very hard to say some things, but I think, I'm in a position to say this.
You can't be racist.
There is something wrong. There is something wrong with I think, our society. It's very easy to point fingers at the leadership, but also I think the society has something to do with that.
Like a responsibility.
A responsibility. If you look at, let's say, England, for example, in 1215, these guys were going to the king and they're like, you got to sign the Magna Carta, we have to share power, right?
Right.
That was from the House of Commons. These people were like, yeah, the king doesn't have to have all these powers. You have to share. There has to be a deal. And they got it. That was in 1215. These guys were trying to understand that, at least it cannot be an absolute monarchy. Things don't work like that. People need to have some level of control over whoever is in charge of them. Now, in many of these African countries, including my own country, people still live in that mentality of whoever is a leader, is that powerful, and whatever he says doesn't have to be questioned. Something is wrong with that. So there is, I think, an issue of political maturity. People are okay with, once someone has assumed power, well, he's there. They don't question it. It's not like in the US here, if something goes wrong, people are like, no, that is wrong. If you look at the Declaration of Independence and look at the language in it, people are complaining about almost anything, and you cannot tax us if we're not represented. Now, if we can just use that very example, in Eastern Congo, in Bukavu, in Uvira, in Goma, in Kisangani, let's go down to Lubumbashi. All these places, people are paying taxes, and these taxes are going all the way to Kinshasa.
Yeah.
About 2,000 kilometers away, if I'm accurate. But the thing is, why would you be paying taxes and you send the taxes to the capital city and they're doing things, whether it's infrastructure, anything, and there is nothing being done locally?
Right.
It's simple. Federalize the government, give more powers to local, governments, bring the government closer to the people. I strongly believe in small governments, and then eliminate things like the president appointing a governor of a province. Some provinces are bigger than the state of Pennsylvania. How would you let one person, appoint a governor of Pennsylvania? Would you do that here?
No.
Right. So these people have to be elected. Then you go down to collectivities. Many of these collectivities are led by kings or chiefs, depending on what tribe lives in that area. Give power to these people. Let them tax people, and let that money help build infrastructure. We spoke the other day. There is no road or railway system that connects Bukavu, Kisangani, Lubumbashi direct to the capital city, Kinshasa. Something is wrong. People grow. They're 80, they die without ever visiting the capital city, because the only way you do that is pay, a ticket and fly to the capital within your own country. Would you think that's really normal? It's not. It's not.
Okay.
Okay. We are off to a great start. Wow. It's so crazy to hear you speak about the country you came from.
Right.
And
as a U.S. citizen now.
Right.
And
so I love doing this podcast because a lot of times Marky will bring on a guest that I've never met. And, so for me, it's the first time getting to meet somebody. And, in the first 20 minutes we've been doing this, you've mentioned John Locke, the Magna Carta. You're a smart guy. Like, this is going to be so much fun getting to know you a little bit more.
Right.
Because this isn't, like so many people when they talk about politics and reforming politics, whether it be in America or abroad or anywhere else, it's based on this ideal of what it can be in the future based on this pie in the sky idea of what I have. And what you're saying is, no, we have a blueprint for how things should be done. Just look back at history, look at the Declaration of Independence,
right.
Look at the structure for which we fought, here in America, we fought against the military superpower when we were basically farmers.
That's right.
And we carved a country out of wilderness. And here we are 250 years later, and it almost kind of feels like we're just reverting back to what it used to be. It feels like we're starting to make decisions. You mentioned somebody who's been in power since the 60s. It sounds a lot like our leader. You mentioned somebody who is powerfully passing money on down to their family.
Right.
Starting to sound really familiar. And it's like it's so strange to me to hear, the ex-president still wields a lot of power over the way the system is done. And, you look at our current president and his party's predecessor and how much influence he still wields over decisions that are being made.
There we go.
It's very interesting to hear the similarities and to look at what you came from and what anybody listening to this will say, like, yeah, that's not good. And we are very quickly marching right towards that.
Now there are people that say his assessment is wildly incorrect.
It's not. It's not. Well, I hope I don't get fired or lose friends for saying this, but I think he's awesome. Right on spot.
You think so? Because you have perspective. You came, like I said before, Americans don't have any concept of like what the people in your country.
I'll take it a step further. Even down to
now we're going to get in trouble.
Even down to you had a peaceful village,
right?
And essentially crime was on the rise,
right?
The borders between countries were starting to dissolve,
right?
And people were moving without being documented. It just, I hear your story, and it's like, oh man, it feels like a warning, almost.
Absolutely, I think a lot of people in the U.S. here do not appreciate how much this country has come, how far this country has come from, and some of the good that got this country where it is right now. Now, you've just given very good examples. If I strongly believe that a former president has a role to play, but it's a peaceful one. I think former leaders, regardless of the position, have to be apolitical. They do not have to be that political. But, without mentioning names, I think some people have left office and become increasingly very powerful.
In America.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Here in the U.S. And you did mention of the current president. He's been in Washington for over 40 years.
40-something years, yeah.
Something is wrong with that. Now, when I was talking about the establishments, these families, powerful families in the Congo, not different from the famous Bidens,
Right.
Not really different. You do have the current Minister of Defense, Jean-Pierre Bemba. He was just appointed by the president as the Minister of Defense. But his family goes back to, I think, the 60s or 50s. His father, Bemba Salona, was one of the richest people in Congo. He owned mines. He sold, all kinds of precious minerals to the West. He was making big money. His son, up to today, is still a very powerful person. This is the guy who used his own money, invested it to create a militia that saw a lot of innocent Congolese people die, vying for power. He was sent to the ICC. He was sentenced. He was in jail for, I believe, more than 10 years, came out, and is again in government.
How does that happen?
Corruption. I think there are people who think they know better than anybody else, and they're the ones who have to always be there. But you start to see the pattern. So this is a son of a very rich, wealthy person who at least died, but his son is still very powerful. He's still in government. 60 years later, what is he doing now? You mean the country lacks other people who can replace him? What about accountability for what he did, in the 2006 elections?
I find it's very bizarre to me that if you have enough money, you can start up your own army,
Oh my God.
kill innocent people in your own country, go to jail for 10 years,
And still come back
and then come back
and be the Minister of Defense.
to defend the country of the people that you murdered.
Right.
What the fuck?
It's sick. But that's the reality. So
Sorry, Ushu, we're just sensitive Americans, and we don't.
Right.
We could go on about this forever and ever, but I want to get back to you a little bit.
Right.
God.
You know, so we've got you and your father, your family.
So-
you said
so-
your mother was killed when
my mother was killed. Yeah. She was
In the
pregnant.
village?
Yeah.
and
The night they came,
Yep. She was guillotined.
she was guillotined.
She was
They brought a
macheted.
Oh, okay.
Well, yeah, she was basically
Is that what
killed with a machete.
Man.
Yeah.
with your family there?
Yeah, and actually not just her, but the story is sad, but she did not die alone. I think one of her aunties was living. Those traditional things when a woman is pregnant, like she has to live in her own room. So my mom was living by herself in a room, and one of the sisters, and they were both killed. We narrowly survived.
From a militia paid for by a rich person.
By a rich person. Could be a parliamentarian, could be a senator somewhere in Kinshasa, making big money. With $3,000, you can make a damage. You can do a lot of damage in my country.
For $3,000.
As long as you have the AK-47, get 10 of them, you got a group of 10 people.
And that's all it
You
takes.
turn into a gangster, right? You kill a couple of people.
Do
You control a
people,
mine. It's just a month. You sell a little bit of gold. You buy more guns. You now have 20, right? So with time, within a year, you're growing. Your bank account is growing fat, and you know what I mean. Next time you're driving, and it gets worse.
okay, I'm going to ask a kind of off.
Have you heard the questions I've asked over the last 48?
In the Congo, so in your village, was there anybody with a firearm that could defend the village?
No, well, sometimes
Is that a crazy question?
Sometimes I joke that maybe if we do have the Second Amendment in Congo and everyone is able to carry a gun, the story can change.
So you don't have nobody.
There's no way
No,
to protect
It's
yourself.
not a normal thing
No.
for a private citizen to own a weapon.
No way. Even in Uganda, we're looking at 10 years ago, President Museveni did send troops to Karamoja region to disarm the Karimojong people. The Karimojong, they live a nomadic lifestyle, and they own a lot of guns to protect their cows from, cattle rustlers from, Kenya, mostly the Pokot, the Turkana, who come and steal their cattle. Now, they had guns, but President Museveni sent troops there, and it was voluntary disarmament. And if you refuse to offer your gun, it would be forceful. So a lot of them gave
So
out
it's
their
not
guns.
voluntary.
It wasn't. These people wanted to have their guns because that's how they protect their cattle, their cows, and they needed, to have firearms. But the government pulled the firearms from them. So no, in many African countries, you can't own your own firearm. Yeah, the government is so much, I think fearful of any uprising of people, having access to, weapons.
So if I can make an assessment from what you just said,
right.
is that whenever the government, in your experience,
Mm-hmm.
when the government comes to take your ways of defending yourself, that's not a good thing.
Well, it's not a good thing. But again, I think I go back to what I did mention before, political maturity,
Okay.
And when I see some of these crazy people,
Well, let's define crazy. What's their
well, many of these people working for organizations and claiming they're pushing for democracy in Africa,
Yeah,
whether
yeah.
it's, from the West,
yeah.
whether it's countries in Europe or here in the US, people pushing for democracy in Africa, they do not. That's one thing they don't mention. You're going to tell people whose countries are like 50 years old since independence, 60 years old since independence, oh, you need to have a democracy. But these are people who still have the idea of a Leviathan, that big, powerful leader that makes decisions for them. So you're prematurely pushing for democracy into people who are not politically mature enough to understand what democracy is.
Well, they've never lived in a country or a worldview where they're
They
self-reliant.
don't question the government.
Yeah.
They don't
They
question
don't know how to
anything.
make decisions. They
Right.
just do what they're told.
Yeah.
And that's not because they're stupid. They were just never taught it.
Correct. It's not because they were stupid.
Yeah.
And it's not racist
They're
to
ignorant.
say this, but yeah, they're just people who are politically immature, and there is something wrong with that. You know?
And I'm saying that they're not educated on it the same way I'm not educated on the experiences of the Congo.
Right.
Do you know what I mean?
Mhm.
So if I don't
It's just
know,
a worldview they don't understand. They have no
Yeah.
example
They,
of it.
yeah, they do not have an example of it.
Yeah.
So stop pushing for it because you're just making things worse.
Wow.
so okay, so
So
let's just, it's a lot.
Right.
So I'm just bear with me.
Right.
You then are making your way to a settlement. You get to the settlement.
Mhm.
You and the rest of your family.
Right.
For people who don't understand, people who have families,
hmm
can you kind of relate to me, like what you see, what you hear, what you smell, or do you not know, or do you not remember any of that?
So
Just
people
to-
that do not have family.
No, people who do have family, because I think for an individual to say, oh, that's terrible.
hmm
But for an individual who has a wife and children,
Right.
I think it hits a little bit differently what you went through. Does that make sense?
Right.
Because they worry about soccer practices, and I'm saying suburbia. They worry about soccer practices and whether or not their kid has the right outfit on for school. I don't think they understand the scope and the depth of what people that don't live in America have to go through. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
So if you can maybe relate to like what the environment was at this settlement with 1.2 million people,
Yeah.
what was that atmosphere like? Like what was it forest? What was it? And what were the people like? And where were they from? And
Mhm.
how long were you there?
Right. So for my family, we lived there close to about 12 years and a couple of months.
You lived 12 years in a settlement.
Yeah, yes.
Okay.
In settlement.
So from the ages of 3 to 15?
Around
4 to
yeah,
16,
around that, yeah. So it's, I think how I try to sum out the life in the settlement is, I think, poverty, misery, and hopelessness.
For 12 years.
For 12 years, yeah. I had no shoes. Sometimes you had no soap. I remember me and my brother would go around checking in people's bathrooms, basically, to see if there's a remaining piece of soap that we could use to wash our uniforms. That's how worse it would get. Sometimes we slept hungry and we only had like corn. You roast it and break it into 3, and my father gets a piece, I get a piece, and we drink water and we drink, sleep. Extreme poverty. People have no jobs there. People have nothing. And sometimes, before I actually finish that point, when I see people like Bill Gates with money, talking about, planned, I don't know, parenthood or something, sending birth control and all those things. Well, for you, the guy who claims to have created a company that makes computers, why not, start, maybe a branch of just open up, a small company there that maybe makes computers that people can be hired. Why don't you do things that actually impact the local economies? Why invest in things that don't make any sense? Now, I'm saying that because I know how difficult it is to live in a place where you have no work, basically. At my age, I'm 28. I just turned 28.
You're 28?
Yeah.
You're only 28.
I'm 28. Now, at my age, it would be very difficult for me to find a job right now. People would consider me some young boy,
Are you saying in the Congo or here?
Whether it's in the Congo, in Uganda, in the refugee camp where I came from, in the refugee settlement. Yeah, the same thing. So if I was there right now, because I had finished my education, my secondary education, I would be teaching at a primary school, and I'd be making about $100 every month. $100 every month.
You're making $1,200 a year.
Right. Yeah. Don't be surprised. That's the truth.
That's like one new iPhone in America.
And maybe I would be lucky among the many because I was doing well in school. So I was connected to the principals. People knew me around. I would easily find a job. I would teach. And that's how I survive. But
you can answer your phone. It's
no,
okay.
that's my dad. So, that's how difficult it was. Where extreme poverty was the order of the day, misery and hopelessness, not knowing what's going to happen tomorrow. You know, so
Is that when you're getting your education there in the camp? Is that where you began to take on this knowledge of, like we said, John Locke, the Magna Carta, the Declaration of Independence,
No.
or is that later in life?
that's later. I do think I don't know, I have some writings, things that I wrote when I was a little boy. Then I don't know what I was writing, but I think I had a different view. You know, I think I strongly believed in very powerful leaders. So I was more of a Thomas Hobbes and Leviathan. That was when I came here and I went to college, where I kept my mouth shut.
So when did you come here?
So we came here in 2015.
Okay.
But yeah, so just to get the story back a little bit, we get in the refugee camp. We're there for as long as, my father goes through, surgeries. We had a lot of difficulties. My father went to school. We come from a very educated, Catholic family. It was very hard for us to live there. We had some land. There was enough land for almost everyone then because the refugee population was very small. But my father wasn't he wasn't a farmer. So growing crops was a little difficult. We struggled. Then in 2000, I think in 2011, that's when I received a letter from the UN and they said, well, we're trying to help out families that have been in the refugee camp for long to get them to the third country of asylum.
A third country.
Country of asylum.
Oh, country of asylum. Okay.
Yeah. So I was a little bit excited. Like, okay, where? France? Italy?
Yeah.
The US? Australia? Where? We had no choice. Whatever they told us we're going, we'll just be, yeah, thank you. Because, we had been there for a long time and the poverty and the misery and the hopelessness was just rampant that we're like, yeah, anything goes, anything that comes, we're okay with it.
Before you continue with the UN thing or
Right.
trying to resettle you or get you somewhere to go, for people who don't understand, I'm assuming that in a settlement camp, there's not a lot of antidepressants.
No.
Medicine
No.
for mental health.
Right.
So when you say misery and hopelessness, what would you do or what would other people do?
People drank vodka.
Oh, but they had a lot of vodka.
We had local brews. People drink a lot.
Oh, they were making like potato vodka or like what were they doing? How would they make the vodka?
There is one we get from corn.
Corn. Okay.
From bananas. There is one that they make from corn. The Acholi people of northern Uganda and South Sudan, they call it bungo. My father used to drink that a lot. It's not as strong. I think it has low ABV in it.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's still alcohol. It gets you drunk. And
So was there a lot of people
start
who would
talking
just
too
do
much.
that?
Yeah. Well, that's what people did. My father was drinking a lot.
At that
to
time.
cope, with the depression and everything that you're saying. Many of the fathers did drink. Very few people smoked some pot to get high, but also very few smoke. I think a lot of people smoke in the US than there, but we grow the tobacco. We grow a lot of tobacco. We don't smoke it, But there's a lot of drinking. Because even when I visited Uganda, many of my young people in my age were busy drinking.
So was there any? Usually, alcohol is like this thing. I tell people because I don't drink either, and you don't drink. You and I talked about this. There's two reasons to drink.
Right.
One of them is to celebrate.
Okay.
The other one is because you're sad. Was there ever celebratory drinking?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Okay.
We drink a lot on. Not me, but
Yeah.
On weddings, we drink a lot.
A lot.
Yeah,
A lot.
Yeah, alcohol
Okay.
is there, and people drink and they talk French. Yeah,
Is French your native language?
Even the ones that never went to school will speak French after they drink.
Oh, so it's like they get a couple of them
Yeah.
and they're like, je ne sais quoi.
Yeah, it gets you there.
Parlez-vous français?
Right,
Voulez-vous coucher avec moi?
Right.
Ce soir? Is that what? Yeah.
right.
Is that your native language that you grew up with?
French?
Yeah.
No. I grew up speaking Swahili,
Okay.
and yeah, just for the record, I speak about 7 languages. I'm crazy.
Well, rattle them off. What do you Swahili?
What do you speak?
So, well, besides English, I speak French. I also speak Lingala, which is the second most spoken national language in Congo. We do have 5 national languages.
Wow.
Then I speak Nyarwanda. I speak Runyoro. I speak Arabic Juba from South Sudan. It's a dialect of Arabic that they speak in the Black Sudan in the south. What else do I speak? Oh my God, I speak. Yeah,
You're confused about how many languages you speak, and
Yeah.
I'm confused about, do I speak English?
Because I mean, every
Yeah.
time when I meet people and they speak a language, I'm like, yeah, let's get into it. I just switch. Yeah, even Spanish now, I'm like getting great. You know,
Are you really?
Yeah.
Okay, back to the UN settlement stuff. I
Yeah.
just wanted to get the tone of what it would be in misery. That's just why I wanted to,
Yeah.
to let people understand.
And I
what
think that was
means.
that was very important because people drink to cope. People
Mhm.
drink to cope. That's the point that I was trying to bring home. People drink to cope. There is just too much misery, hopelessness, and you don't know what's coming tomorrow. There were two things in the refugee camp. You either went to an outside country, come to the US, Canada, or Australia, or any other country in Europe, or be successful in education, finish your secondary education, get a scholarship with the UN, and go to a university that has a reputation, like Makerere in Uganda, finish and come back and do something else. But besides the two, there was nothing else. You'd just be a spoiled young boy who is drinking and abusing drugs, maybe. And be in the village for the rest of your life until you die.
Wow.
All right, pull in a little bit closer. You as a human,
right.
Yeah, there you go. Okay, now you're good. Okay, get me to the when you leave or
The resettlement.
the
There is
process of
the
that.
the process now. So we are called. We receive this letter, and you know it's very brief, very shallow. Not a lot of details in it, but they're like you have an interview. It's usually a preliminary interview. That's the first time you're meeting an officer. They're asking questions about your own security, what you think. You know, it's important for them to help you out. It's a little bit tricky. They're like, yeah, we want to help you, but again, you have to prove that you actually deserve that help. So
You
my
have
father
to prove that you deserve the help.
Man.
right, somehow. Yes. I mean, well, you have to go through the interview. You have
Yeah,
to
but it's
say
almost
good
like you have to
stuff.
like write an essay. It's
Right,
like tell
kind
us
of.
why we should
Mhm.
help you.
Right. Well,
Yeah.
you have to prove that actually you think your life is in danger. And maybe if they brought you to the US or they took you to Canada or Australia or anywhere else, you know, that would help you. So, yeah, there is a little bit of that defense that you have to make. But it's very painful because once you get into the resettlement process, that changes your life by 360 degrees.
That brings you back to where you were, 180, right?
Yeah,
Right.
180.
Okay, right. 360 brings you back.
180.
Yeah, 180.
Okay. So
Okay.
yeah, it just rotates around. And the reason is because maybe you've been there for a long time, you know, you had no hopes, and now they're calling you, and you have to be super careful because the thing is they look for consistency. Let's say, for example, me and my dad and my young brother, they're asking very sensitive questions. They may even ask about my grandfather. But if you mess up the names or the dates or anything, they're like, are you the right person or it's somebody else?
Oh, because there's no like identifications. There's
no,
no.
we don't have any records.
Oh,
You know, I don't have my my birth certificate from the Congo.
yeah.
It all got lost.
You ran
have
away in the middle of the
nothing,
night. Yeah.
And you have cockroaches, you have everything. If you do have a little bit of documents in the refugee camp because of the way the housing is, and they get eaten up by, you know, the termites and the cockroaches and everything. You lose all the documents. There's just no way to preserve your documents there. You know, most of the housing is temporary. It's semi-permanent if you try your best, but that's about it. Now, you know, we start going through the process. We do have a couple of interviews in 2011, 2012, maybe a little bit, 2013. Almost have nothing. 2014 again, it comes back. You know, 14, we tried to finish things up. And in 2015, we have medical checkups. We have the US cultural orientation, which takes 1 week. They brief you about the life in the US, how to plan for money and things like that. And
That was a 4-year process.
Yes.
4-year process.
Phew.
And that's when I tell people you can't just let people cross the border in the South.
You're
And-
very popular today.
I don't know who is. I don't know what they're looking for me. I don't think it's for anything.
Is it
good.
the UN?
No, it's not the UN. They would never call me.
Fingers crossed.
You never know.
Okay, so 4-year process.
4-year process.
Yeah.
And what I was just saying is you can't let people cross the border in the South and just come in. I mean, to me, it's a little painful because I know that, you know, there's nothing wrong with going through a process.
Mhm.
We're not happy people. We're sleeping hungry for the 4 years. We persevered. We understood that this country is trying to help us. This is not our country. We're trying to get some help. Be peaceful, you know, try to be respectful and just let the process play out. So if you look at our life in the refugee camp and how, how patient we were, I would expect the same patience from anyone, you know? So we finished everything. I think we had the last, not an interview, but we had something in like September, and then October, November, and in December, I received a call from my dad, and it's like, we've received the final letter confirming our travel to the US, and you should come back and say goodbye to your friends, and we should be leaving for the capital city in 2 weeks. So I was at school. I had just finished my last national exam paper, and I boarded to go home that same, I think it was on Friday. So that weekend I went back home, and, the rest was a story. Went to Kampala. It was raining heavily. We got stuck on the roads. The roads were bad, but at least they've constructed them now. And we were at a hotel for, I believe, a week. And after that, we drove to the airport, and, we came. We arrived in Scranton. It was on December 10th, 2015. And since then, we've been here.
So you got here when you were 21, 20?
I think it was 20. Yeah. So the date's probably, a little messed up in the middle.
Why Scranton?
We had no choice. It wasn't asked to choose where to go. The question usually they ask is, do you have any friends or family that lives in the US somewhere? Mm-hmm. And if you say yes, they try to take you close to whoever you said. If you say no, like, in our case, we had no one.
They send you to Scranton.
Yeah, they were like,
we're only making fun because we're from here.
Right. Yeah. They're like, Scranton. But Scranton was good.
It's because we're all really nice people and we're welcoming by everybody.
Yeah. Right.
Very, very much so.
There's probably something special about Scranton.
Probably.
Yeah. If Joe is from here, just know. There's something special about Scranton.
If Joe is from here?
Yeah.
He said Joe. You mean Brandon? No, I'm kidding. So that was your first plane ride?
Yes, that was the first plane ride. We flew from Entebbe in Uganda to Amsterdam. I'll never forget.
Oh, yeah, because they got drugs there.
We got stuck in Amsterdam for I think 7 hours. Then we boarded another plane for JFK. And then one of the Border Patrol folks drove us down to the airport. And I think there was a caseworker from Catholic Social Services that then brought us to Midtown Apartments just right across the street.
Oh, no way.
Yep.
So was it just you,
10
your father?
10 p.m. local time.
Was it just you, your father, and your brother?
Right.
And you didn't know anybody?
I knew nobody except from, the relationship we now built up with the caseworkers. And it was a little difficult for, I was 20 and I had met most of my friends there. I went to school there. I lost everything. So I felt a little unhuman when I came here because I was studying everything from scratch.
What was your first impression? I mean, I've had the good fortune to travel a lot throughout my lifetime all over. I've been to Africa. I've been, all over Europe. And,
where exactly in Africa?
Ghana and Togo.
Okay, West Africa.
Yeah. So, I was there for a little bit. And
he played soccer.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So just I've seen a lot of places, and for me, there's, in my opinion, as far as what I've seen, there's been about 4 or 5 places that I've been that when you turn the corner,
right,
and you see it for the first time, you're like, oh my God, how is that real?
Mm-hmm.
And it's just so, I love seeing other places, other cultures. For you coming from a lifetime of what you came through,
mm-hmm,
and getting on a plane for the first time and being in the airport and then arriving at JFK and then coming here, and then you said you got here at 10 p.m.
Mm-hmm.
What was that next morning like? That next morning when you woke up and it's like, where am I? What do I do? Like, what was that for you?
Yeah, so I think we had a lot of expectations. We thought, I think the image that we had for the US was that, this is, I don't know, maybe the skies are blue and the soils are yellow and, there's money everywhere and life is just easy. The first thing I think we felt was the jet lag. That was like a big thing.
Yeah.
And also the time zone, the differences in time. We
It was
kept
about
on
8 hours?
Yeah, 7 hours actually.
7?
We were sleeping during the day and we were active during the night.
Yeah.
So there was a lot of change, but I think what mostly impacted me was people were not interacting. We got stuck in the house the whole day. We never knew who the neighbors are. Up to now, we don't know who the neighbors are.
We still don't know.
We still don't know. And I was like, how do these people live like this? And everyone is driving a car around, like no one is walking outside. To me, this is. I don't see a sense of community here. I don't see a sense of togetherness. To me, if we ran out of cooking oil, I went to the neighbor and said, "Hey, we need some cooking oil. Do you have a bulb of onion? Give us a bulb of onion. We'll frying something." I mean, I think because of poverty, because of not having enough, like somehow that strengthens that sense of togetherness. People are forced to interact, and there is plenty of time you spend outside. I used to spend like 90% of the day outside. These days I spend, 90% of my time in the house. I must be a sick person now. I'm missing out on the sunshine and the air and everything. So it was a big change. It was a big change on almost every level. Then we went to TJ Maxx to start working and making money so we can pay bills. That was a complete disaster. I was fired after 3 weeks. I wasn't used to working that fast. I wasn't used to technology. They're like, scan this, enter this in the computer. And I had never had my own laptop in my life. I didn't know how to, even when I went to college, I had issues, typing. I was a very slow, person at typing. So there was a complete change in our lives. It wasn't easy for the first, let me say, the first 3-4 years.
Can I ask a quick question?
Right.
If it took you 4 years to get here,
right,
don't you think maybe it would have been helpful to get you prepared for stuff like that? Because they had 4 years
to do that.
Yeah, to be like, hey, here's how, like, your first job's going to be this.
Right.
You know?
Again, you don't receive updates. You don't know what's happening. You're trying to be careful with yourself. Anything wrong, could ruin your case. You're not looking at forcefully asking for anything beyond whatever they tell you. I would think so. I thought. I mean,
it seems to me to make sense because it's not like.
And I'm not criticizing the process, but I also think.
No, I'm not either. I'm just saying, like.
The 1 week of U.S. cultural orientation was a joke. How do you give people 1 week to be, hey, this is how you live in the U.S.? The videos about jobs, woo, they're fast. These guys, videos were running fast on the screens. We couldn't even see how people were working. And I think it was for a reason. Because we have some people at that point who are like, no, we're not going. This is not for us. So they knew, I think, having spent that much money on people, whether it was from the FBI, people who just came to interview us down there, they had spent a lot. They invest in every family that comes there. Every lot was having like 120 families and looking at 750 individuals, including kids. So they never wanted to like lose it at that point. They were running videos. These were not the best videos to show people how, things happen here. Then you also had a lot of very uneducated people who would not even write their own names. And they're talking about, you can be making about, $1,500, a month, and you have to pay rent, you have to do this. But this was completely new to these people. If someone can't even write their name, do you really think one day of, this is how you plan for your money would help these people out?
No.
Well, you're talking about going from a world where an educated
living on $1,
living on $100 a month, and now you're telling no, it's 15 times that.
Yeah.
Oh, and by the way, food is probably 20 times what you're paying.
Right.
It's just
people are having questions about
wild.
Whether it's
like us moving to Mars,
get married, and how and all this is not even covered in the cultural orientation, and that's why I think I've always thought behind my back that at some point I have to like maybe make a video and make sure it's just out there for these people who are planning to come. That way they know what exactly they're coming for. Because there's an expectation that once you come to the US, like, I don't know, I think it's an El Dorado, right?
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That's the assumption. It's an El Dorado. It's, I don't know.
Everything's made of gold. And,
it's half heaven.
Manna from heaven.
Yeah. But when you get here,
was it?
Yeah.
Was it
well,
heaven?
it wasn't. It was just another place under the sun.
Oh, that's a great saying.
Right.
I love that.
Yeah. It's
so, okay.
So you came with your father?
I came with my father and my young brother.
And your brother. So it's the three of you came together.
3 of us, yep.
Are they still local?
So my father is across the street. My brother
right
lives,
now?
Yeah. My brother lives in Dayton, Ohio.
I'm sorry.
He's been there for...
Ohio is an entire
4
state.
years.
I'm sorry.
He lives in Dayton. Yep.
Dayton's not that bad. Did he get affected by that train crash? Remember that train crash?
No. Yeah. No.
Okay.
He was.
So
Wow.
Did you? So when you got here at like 2021, did you do any schooling when you got here?
So, you mean 2015?
No, when you were 20 or 21.
Yeah, when you got here 2021, in the
Mhm.
last like 8 years, have you done any schooling?
Right. So when I got here, I had finished my secondary education in Uganda. I was doing physics, economics, and math.
Physics.
Yeah. And
Those aren't light topics.
I have
Physics. Wait, you know physics?
Yeah.
I would love to chat with you about physics someday.
I have good science background.
Really?
Yeah. No.
Let's talk some crazy stuff
would
with physics.
actually sell me out with sciences, but yeah. So yeah, I have a good background. Yeah. Yeah. I'm confident.
You can't. Yes, you are.
Right. So when I got here, I was a little concerned about going back to school. My father was drinking. Things were not going the way I wanted them to go. Money became a problem. Friends are busy sending messages asking for some assistance. The family is asking for some assistance. When you get here, and this is something people sometimes don't understand. For us, people that come from many of these African countries, we have a problem. Many of your friends and family, they're expecting that now you came, you're the savior.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you
We-
got to
we're
bring
not
them
gonna-
along with you.
Yeah, we're not gonna
Yeah.
sleep hungry no more. We're not gonna,
Yeah.
we'll not have shoes, clothes. And
Yeah.
We'll throw big parties now. Things are gonna change, but they don't understand, that you're also having issues to deal with here. You may make some good money, but you have bills to pay, and you have to balance things out. You're not gonna prioritize trying to help a family member in the Congo, in Uganda, when you have rent, when you have, meals to buy.
Right.
Yeah, so it becomes difficult, but sometimes that was stressful. I wasn't making much. I think I was working for some company and they were paying me $8 an hour, Then I had a car loan. We had our
Insurance.
It's me who was paying, insurance. I was paying rent because, my dad would work like a month and drop
Mhm.
and stay home. So yeah, it was very hard. But I did, because of my results being in Uganda, I did go back for GED. I finished GED. I had a Microsoft Office specialization at Lackawanna.
Oh,
which
Bill
was-
Gates is back.
Yeah. paid for by Career Link.
Yeah.
And then in 2017, the University of Scranton, through their Jesuit Center, I think they were trying to offer scholarships to refugees, and I think there were 2 scholarships, one for the Syrian and one for Congolese. And I don't know what happened with the Syrian, but I know I did receive my presidential scholarship. I think it was for the Kevin Quinn. I can't remember.
Kevin Monsignor Quinn.
Yeah.
Quinn. Yeah. So yeah, he did. Yeah, that's how I got the scholarship, and I was there for the 4 years, and I appreciate what they did every day. So yeah, that's how I did my bachelor's degree in political science, and I did graduate last year in May.
You have a bachelor's degree in political science.
That's right.
Out of all the things you could take, why did you get a degree in political science?
I think I was enlightened.
Tell me about that.
When I came here and I looked at the infrastructure and I looked at, people can complain about the government and everything and how the U.S. Yes, but you're far better than many of the places where I've been.
Mm-hmm.
There is no comparison. I was just telling someone in Uganda, my former school principal, that the U.S. is like 1,000 years ahead of many of sub-Saharan African countries.
1,000
years, yes. So that's, and it's
But
it's not an exaggeration,
When you say like far ahead,
right?
like technologically, because here, so over like the last 3 years, I've been having like this crisis of location,
Right.
and I don't believe that I have a lot of toys in my life that I
Okay.
don't need,
Uh-huh.
right?
Right.
And I really don't know if that brings happiness.
It does not.
So when I hear about like your village, I always ask myself, before the tragedies of what happened there, I always ask myself the question, were they happier than I am now prior to the militias? Do you know what I
Right.
mean? So like in a village in Africa, even though you don't have Snapchat, Facebook, the perils of having to pay a rent or insurances or all that stuff. Like, I've been struggling with like where is the joy?
Right.
Which atmosphere or environment is better for actual human joy and like happiness?
Yeah. Now, just a quick factor. I think for me, I've lost about 70% of my happiness since I came to the US. And I don't.
So you were happier in the settlement.
I was happier. I slept hungry. I had nothing, but I was much more happier. I strongly believe that the only source of happiness comes from you being around other people and sharing the little that you have. That's what brings happiness. It's not about a nice car. It's not about a nice house. It's not about how much money you have in the bank. It's none of all those things that people think about. It's not about your career. No, it's people. Even when I went back, when I met my friends, I felt relieved. I felt there's some energy, you know? And people don't realize that. People are so much obsessed with what kind of car I'm driving, what's my house like, and how much money do I have saved for vacation? But you're lying to yourself, These are just pictures you're trying to put in place to make yourself feel good, but there is nothing true about those things, I think creating that kind of happiness that you might need in life. So I was much more happy, and this is true. I was happier in the refugee camp, in the refugee settlement, than I am right now. Because, you're just consumed by, let me work and pay my bills. You have no time to be home. I have 2 boys. I can't stay home to play with my kids. My father had much more time.
A 3-year-old and a 9-month-old?
A 4-year-old.
4-year-old.
And 10 months. My father had more time for me and my brother than I'm having right now for my 2 little boys. That makes me feel guilty because I can't stay home and, be with them. So I'm becoming a failed dad, and which is bad.
Well, don't say that yet.
But no. Well, I'm not trying to judge myself, but the thing is, my father has told me that there's this French saying that l'essentiel n'est pas ce qu'on a fait de l'homme, mais ce qu'il fait de ce qu'on a fait de lui.
You're gonna have to translate that for me.
Yes. So if Mark helps me, with something, it's very easy for me to be like, yeah, thank you, Mark. But that's not the best way to thank you for what you've done for me. The best way is, Mark did this to me. Let me find someone else that I can do maybe the exact thing or something else similar to. That way, I appreciate what Mark did to me. That's how, to me, I think it's actually not saying thank you. It's adding value to what you did to me.
Passing it on.
Right.
Yeah.
So to me, that's how I see things. So if my father did struggle to raise me and my brother, I do have a responsibility to also raise my boys. The 2 are even more coming, to be better. I don't think if I just tell my father thank you, for it, it's not enough. So that's my view of, saying thank you, of the way you have to do the same thing that someone else did to you, to someone else, as a way of paying back. It's not even paying back. It's just adding value, like you're saying, pass it on, So that's the French saying that he keeps telling me all the time, because it's very easy for anyone to come around me like, thank you for what you did. Thank you, but what about it?
Yeah.
Does it make any difference? No. The difference is find someone else to do the same thing to that person. That's a way to say thank you.
Well, and it keeps the cycle going. It's like you talk about, I've talked about that within my family. Like there was a little bit of a negative cycle, 2 generations ago with, both of my grandfathers. And, my mom and my father, they ended the cycle of, parenting. Both my grandmothers were great parents, but both grandfathers were not good. And they ended that negative cycle, both parents.
Right.
But what you're talking about is continuing a good cycle.
Continuing good cycle.
And
yep.
It's not, we just did something nice and you did something nice. No. Let's keep it going.
Right.
Let's create a culture. Let's create a community of togetherness, of sacrifice, of
Right.
Man.
Why does I don't understand why it is crazy for me as an American to hear your story and what you've gone through,
of how bad it was,
and then you say, I've lost 70% of my happiness since I left that.
Which is true. I did.
How's your dad and your brother? Are they?
My father still drinks.
Yeah, we can get him
he
off
still
that.
has issues there. I don't think so.
I got off it. If I can get off it, anybody can get off it. That's how I feel. But if you don't stop trying, what's the point?
Yeah.
Or if you do stop trying, you can't stop trying. You always have to try.
Try and fail, but never fail to try.
Yes.
Well, my brother is doing some music. He also works to pay his bills because, he left home to do music. My father and I wanted him to go to college after he finished high school here. And he seemed, he just never wanted the advice. And he left and he went to Seattle. He was in Seattle for a little bit.
And he's like, this place is crazy. I'm getting out of here.
Yeah, he left Scranton and went for Seattle, but he never liked it there as well. He told me he used to make good money, but the bills were that high.
Mm-hmm.
He left and
what year was he in Seattle?
2017.
Okay.
And then he moved to Dayton when my father actually left me and my wife to go and stay in Dayton, Ohio, and they started living together. Then my father, when I had a child, he was like, "Yeah, let me come back and stay with my grandson." So he came back to stay with us, and since then he's never gone back. But he's doing fine. Not quite as well with his music career, but he's paying his bills. He's not complaining. He's not asking for help, and I hope he's fine. Then my father is here, and my stepmom actually came from the refugee settlement 7 months ago.
Your stepmom did?
Yeah, she did. We did fill out an application for her to come and join my father.
Now, did they meet there in the settlement camp?
Yeah, they were married in 2015, like a year before.
Right before you left.
Yeah, right before I left, yeah.
Wow.
So has he not seen her since 9 months ago?
So I mean,
like from 2000, what'd you get here? 2015.
15, yeah.
Did he not see her?
She just came last year in October.
But he did not see her for that entire period of time.
Nope.
How did they keep in contact?
Phone calls.
Okay.
WhatsApp video calls. And,
the WhatsApp. Yeah.
WhatsApp works everywhere. Yeah. So that was the backup plan.
In all fairness, it does sound like a recipe for a healthy marriage. Some good distance.
Right. Yeah. Well, now we do have a saying that with a family or with relatives, it's usually good not to stay together, but to visit. Usually when you visit, there's a lot of happiness with visits. But if you get too close with your brother or your sister, your uncle, I mean, yeah, at some point you're like, nah, I don't.
Well, that's like the cynical American way of like, I can never miss you if you never leave.
Right.
Yeah.
Or what? Absence makes the heart grow fonder.
Yours much nicer than mine.
Yeah.
Wait, what was yours?
How could I miss you if you never leave?
That sounds like a really shitty thing to say to somebody you care about. You never miss me. It's like you never leave.
You're
should
always
leave.
here.
Okay, so what do you seem like a incredibly educated person. You seem like an incredibly pragmatic person. You seem like a person who is thoughtful. You think through all your experiences in your life, and you try to impart a wisdom on the people that you interact with. And it's not, and you don't preach.
I don't.
No, you have a good conversation with people, and that's why I really, really loved having that 4-hour conversation with you.
Now, in the absence of technology, you're forced to become a good storyteller. So I grew up without technology, and I think I was trained to be a good storyteller, and that's how you make friends. That's how you survive. If you're a good storyteller, you make good friends. You get free food, you get free drinks, and you get everything. I made a lot of friends, and we had no technology. If you wanted to watch a movie or watch European soccer, Premier League, and all that stuff, you had to pay and go to not a so good place, but these cinema halls. You know, you'd pay and sit these benches, and
and they have like a TV.
After an hour, someone comes in and pulls you, like your time is off, like go back home, or you pay more money.
Just to sit and watch a soccer match.
Yeah, just to sit. And I'm still surprised that when I went back to the refugee settlement,
Will you talk about that? You just got back from Uganda.
Yeah. And
so
the same things still. I mean, people are still in these, these halls watching, soccer and movies. Like it, there is no technology. I mean, I don't know why it's still very difficult for us not to help those who are still there. Because I think like TV, you should be watching that in your home. There's nothing crazy about having a small screen or anything in your home and watch movies, for example. But people are still going to these places, and they're spending too much money on it. But yeah, that's the truth. I mean, I grew up in a place where, there was absence of technology and, the way we passed time was tell stories, oral tradition.
Oral tradition.
Yeah.
So you just to recap real quick is that you come to America and then what was it about 3 weeks ago you went to Uganda?
I went for 2 weeks. I came back last
week.
Last weekend. Yeah. On
so you were
Sunday,
planning that
so.
Uganda trip for a while, right?
I would think so. Yeah, I was planning for a while because I was a little disappointed that my sister came to the refugee camp in 2018, and we don't share the same mom, but again, we are Bantu, belong to the tribe of the Lega. Our life is determined by our traditions and cultures. That's how I live my life every day. That's what makes me African. That's what makes me human. We are patrilineal. So the child belongs to the father. I'm my father's child. I'm not my mom's.
Okay.
If I needed land, I would go to my uncles on the side of my father. If, I needed land, I would go to my grandfather, his father. That's how things are. You don't go to your mom's side. So if my father has, a child with another woman, that is my brother, that is my sister. It's not like half sister. We don't do that. But if mom has children with another guy, no, those are not my brothers, those are not my sisters. Because we are patrilineal. You go with the side of your father. Yeah. So my father had this girl, she's now 31, when he was in high school. He was a young man. And went and got married to her mom and, gave birth to me and my young brother. But we grew up not knowing the sister. So she came looking for us and she found when we had left the refugee camp. And I felt guilty. I felt like, okay, she's been there for about 5 years now. My brother and my dad are all here in the US. It's not like money is that much of an issue. Like you can easily pay an air ticket and just go and visit someone and come back. So yeah, I was forced to prepare for the journey a little bit, save some money and, pay the plane ticket and go. So, I feel relieved now that I went and saw her and I spent some good time with her and came back. Yeah.
Are you going to try to get her here or?
That's going to be the process. It's not easy, but I'm looking at teaming up with my young brother and see if we can, apply. I think it's I-130 or something and see if we can do some DNA testing. And it takes a while, but.
Does it help because you guys are already here and she's family?
It does help. Well, now that I'm a U.S. citizen, the process is going to be a little bit smooth. But if I can get my brother on board, that I think will strengthen the sponsorship.
Yeah. But
if it's just me myself, they're going to look at my tax returns and maybe the money is not enough for her and the 3 kids. That's 4 people. So yeah, I'm looking at teaming up with my brother.
She has 3
my
children.
Dad. Yeah, she has 3 kids. But she has no husband. She's husband remained in the Congo. I think has another wife or something. We are very big at polygamy. People want second, third wife. You don't eat they say you don't eat the same food every day. So
that's why you lost 70% of your happiness right there.
You never know. You might be right. Right.
Oh man.
Well, guys. Oh my God, that was funny. So you, what I was trying to get to was that you have now been in America for about 7-8 years.
Right.
And then you go back to Uganda. So you now have the perspective of pre-America, America, and now you go back to Uganda. What insights do you have from your most recent experience on what is going on over there that we over here don't know about, based on your story, whether anything improved, whether anything stayed the same, whether it got worse, like what is your take on what is going on in that particular place right now with the hindsight of America and your birthing in Congo?
Yeah. Well, I think let me start with the Ugandan government side of it. I know there was a lot of U.S. interests, not within government, but I think civil society organizations were, pushing for democracy and funding opposition in Uganda. I did not appreciate that because the guy that they're trying to push for, you see, there is usually there is activism and there is leadership. Those are two different things. You can be a crazy activist, but that does not make you a leader. So the guy they're pushing for is, I think, more of an activist than a leader. So I was concerned about that. And I also think President Museveni, much as they claim he's a dictator, he's doing some good things. He's teamed up with the Chinese and other people, and they've built infrastructure. I was very happy that, you drove on tarmac for 2 hours from the provincial, town of Hoima to the refugee settlement. Not until the refugee settlement, but at least for about 2 hours. And then after that, you have like 15 minutes of, getting into the refugee settlement. But yeah, most of it was tarmacked. So that has, improved. So there's a lot of investment in infrastructure.
Mostly from the Chinese, if I'm
Mostly
not
from the Chinese loans, yes. Yeah, but...
Do you know about this?
Mhm.
Okay.
Yeah,
Do you know, Dan?
I don't. Please tell me.
So I think we can say this is that it seems like the two superpowers on the planet are the United States and China.
Right.
Mhm.
The United States seems like their foreign policy plan is to screw with governments,
Right.
destroy everything,
Mm-hmm.
take everything.
Yeah.
The Chinese way of doing it is we're going to invest in you.
Mhm.
Mm-hmm.
And it seems
And hold
to-
you hostage.
Yeah.
that it's not a good thing either way.
It's not.
But at least there's not war and genocide and murder.
Yeah.
I mean, the Chinese are what they are, and they have their way of doing things, just like polygamy.
Right.
It's a cultural thing. It doesn't mean it's good or it's bad.
Mm-hmm.
We can think it's bad, and that's okay. But maybe in their country they don't.
Right.
So, and I think I don't agree with the Chinese. I don't like how their form of government.
We're going to put it on record.
Yes. Yeah. So in
Right.
case the paper writes anything, I don't like the Chinese.
Communist sympathizer.
I'm not. But it seems to me that instead of investing as opposed to destroying would be a great way to make allies.
Invest.
Yeah.
Invest.
Yeah.
And make
Like,
allies.
and I'm saying this because I think America should do that. Let's not
Yeah.
topple governments.
I was extremely disappointed when there was this U.S. Africa summit, and these guys were talking about 55 billion to African states. I was like, really? When Xi Jinping visited us in South Africa, a couple of years ago, he gave us 60 billion. Why is the U.S. embarrassing itself, calling the heads of state to Washington and, promising 55 billion? 55, that's 5 billion less than what the Chinese gave us. That's, to me,
And there was
it's a
no
disaster.
conference.
If you can run all these, military bases, over 700 military bases all over the world, really, you do not have 100 billion to give to the African states to invest in infrastructure? What a better way to strengthen that relationship.
Mhm.
There is still an opportunity. And I do think the US has to get back to, its senses and, stop that, I think I think it's an orgasm within the State Department of
An orgasm?
Yeah, it's an organism. They're
an
orgasm.
organism.
An orgasm. Actually, they're very happy. They're so excited about it. They think it's overthrowing.
You heard it right the first time.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Just making sure.
Yeah, they overthrowing, governments and replacing them with, whoever works for them. That doesn't work no more. This is not the 60s.
Yeah.
Things have changed.
The world has changed.
Yeah, correct. Invest in these countries, help them build infrastructure, do business there. You're living a vacuum. Many of the people doing business there are the Indians, the Chinese, the Arabs, and there is something wrong with those people too. People tend to, point fingers at white people, they're racist and all this stuff. But do you know how Indians treat black people?
No.
Do you know how
Not well.
they don't pay us? Do you know how they'll spit saliva in your face
Will they?
in your own country? Do you know how worse it is there? I've been talking to people. I just went. 2 weeks ago, people we don't like the Indians. They're not respectful. And this is true. Many of these Indians that own businesses in Africa do not respect, black people. It's not okay. There is something wrong with that. So I think many of the countries in the West, people are pushing for, respect for human, for human rights and things like that. That's not with China and India. And these are the biggest players on the planet, on the continent now. So to me, I would think there is a vacuum. There's a vacuum. U.S. companies have to go and invest in Africa. There is nothing wrong with that. I've seen, I think, a lot of things where people can invest, including things like hospitality, let's say hospitals, for example. There are a lot of places where you can invest. Technology is still a big issue. I was in Uganda. I was in the capital. I was in the countryside. There are a lot of things to invest in. No one is investing. What these people are doing is they're busy telling us about democracy. They're busy pushing for contraceptives. They're busy sending us ARVs. The Bill Gates people, and they're busy trying to manipulate seeds.
Oh, Monsanto,
Yeah.
So to make sure that you
bad.
can't grow your own shit.
Right.
Yeah.
All the bad that comes with many of these, sort of progressive groups. Yeah, they're terrible sometimes. But yeah, so let's talk about investment. Like the US concentrate more on investing and helping, governments build infrastructure. They should stop the nonsense of changing governments. It's not helping anyone. And again, I'll point out the issue of, I think, political immaturity. They should not just look at the leadership. They should also look at the people governed, people who are being governed. The people have, I think there is an issue with how much they understand democracy. Don't push it, under their throats. They may not understand it.
It almost seems like listening to you and what you're saying is America has this mentality of changing leadership, changing governments, but the people aren't ready to accept this new style of government.
No.
And it's no different than what happened in this country. And we said it before, you had a group of people, and it was a small part of the population, but it was enough that said, no, we don't want to live under the rule of one person, a king, or a parliament that doesn't represent us. No taxation. We want to self-govern.
Right.
That's a very, very difficult thing to do.
It is.
It's very, very difficult. It's why it's such a difficult transition. Like my son's 19. He's going through that difficult transition right now of mom and dad told him what to do. Well, you need to start making some decisions for yourself.
For yourself, yeah.
And that is a very difficult transition.
It is,
for
yeah.
somebody like him. I can't imagine that for a country.
Right.
Of people that have just been told what to do. All of a sudden, nope. Now you get to pick your leaders and you get to have self-governance and you get all of these things, but we still haven't completely changed the way the country operates from these powerful, almost oligarchical figures that have all of the money and all of the power. It just seems like it would be an almost impossible task unless you change the culture outside of government within a country by investing in business, investing in infrastructure, investing in helping people become more self-reliant.
Right.
Rather than more reliant on this new leader we just put in place.
I think the wrong word for that, because as you were saying that, I was thinking like, oh, they need to be educated. And then I'm like, no, that's not the right word.
They need to be given opportunity.
I think the right word is experienced it. In other words, like if there is investment, then what you're doing is you're talking like the regular citizens. They're either going to be employees or they're going to, help out in some way, or maybe there's construction or like whatever can happen. The citizens are going to have to do that. And by doing that, they will slowly start to understand the idea of self-governance. And I'm not saying that in a way that it's derogatory to anyone over there. It's like we as Americans can't understand how they don't understand about self-governance. Do you know what I mean? So like for us, it's a foreign concept to be like, well, what do you mean they don't understand about the responsibilities of self-governance, where it's like, that's what we were born into. Yeah.
Well, we're still a tribal people.
And you still have to deal with that because tradition and culture is very important.
Right. It plays, like I said, I live my life every day based on, my culture and the traditions, and that's what drives me every day. I know what to say to my dad and what not to say. I know things they can do in the house and things I'm not supposed to be doing. I'm guided by my culture and the tradition. That's what drives me every day. Now, this is not to say I support that style of leadership. No, just for the record, I'm very pro-democracy, but I also think democracy has to fully come from the people. Don't make it look funny. Don't try to. It's like the elections in Egypt in 2012. I was extremely disappointed by President Obama. Really. So you have Mohammed Morsi of the Muslim Brotherhood wins elections by a little over 51%. He's the president of the country now. He won the elections. After that, there is a coup by who? This guy, the general.
Yeah, wasn't Modi or something? I forget the name. It was the Arab Spring.
Yeah, Al-Sisi. Yeah, General Sisi. General Sisi of basically organizes a coup and overthrows Morsi, and he's in jail, and that's the end of the story. Is he a legitimate leader of Egypt? There's something wrong with that. He never won the elections. You know it. But you're striking deals with him. You let that happen. There was a way to stop it. Obama did nothing about it. So I was extremely disappointed. And that to me, that's the problem. If you're talking about democracy, be realistic. Mean it.
Mm-hmm.
Do not support people who are undemocratic. But what we see is if someone is in favor of certain things by certain governments, in Washington, they get the support. And even the very person who was elected by the people, he gets thrown out. He loses it. So if it's democracy, let's be realistic. Let's mean it. Let's not, support people who are anti-democratic. That just makes it very difficult for people who are slowly, trying to transition and understanding, the concepts of democracy. Because not all Africans do not understand democracy. There is that section of the people, and thanks to folks in academia, some of these professors at universities, they are pushing for that. But remember, the majority of the people living in, countrysides, rural areas, they have no access to information as they should. There is no access to sometimes electricity. So there are limitations that come with that. But for the most part, we're a very tribal people, and we still have that assumption that, whoever is in power, the leader is powerful. He makes the decisions for us. We don't question, decisions of the leaders.
When we were sitting down for that few hours, the thing that I noticed about you that really got me excited was that you were talking in a way. You okay? Okay. You were talking in a way where it was like, it's so, to you, it's really, conceptually, it's really easy to fix to improve your country.
Absolutely.
And you were using if I remember correctly, you were using the idea of like American democracy to strengthen the abilities of your friends and your family. Where do you see any failures in our democracy right now, the United States democracy?
Yeah, there's some failures.
The Democratic Republic of the United States.
I'll be careful not,
well, I mean,
not get in trouble, but yeah.
I mean, this is your opinion.
Right.
You're not saying, this is peer reviewed.
Right. Nothing peer reviewed. Okay.
Yeah.
I like that.
So you can see you're just giving your perspective because you have a very unique one.
Right. So I'm a very strong proponent of time limits, and I would think those have to extend to folks in Congress and in the Senate. Don't let someone stay there for 40 years. That's wrong. Again, it goes back to the story of my country. We have these powerful families that have had people in government since the 60s, and they still play pivotal role in many of our decisions every day in the capital, Kinshasa. That gets us in trouble. We don't move. Nothing changes in government. You're continuing a pattern of nepotism that has no future. I see that in the U.S. as well. There are things like, I see things like internal trading or something.
Insider
trading.
Yeah.
Those should not be happening. These people have access to the information. They're busy trading. I mean,
they're
really
making laws about what companies can do and then investing in those companies.
Yeah, those things don't help this country. They should stop. Lobbying. I'm not a big fan of lobbying. It's evil. Now, what I like is the way, this is with journalism. People write stories about Africa and they talk about decrees, for example. And here in the US, it's an executive order. I don't see the difference between a decree and an executive order. It's just a leader, very powerful, signing something and boom, it happens.
Holy shit. Okay, keep going.
Right. I have a problem with that. Also, what else don't I like? On the issue of lobbying, I think lobbying is what is corruption in Africa. It's bribing, actually.
Yeah.
It's giving someone money to influence their decisions. Stop it. But every time, many of I had this was in Pennsylvania. Someone was trying to push for this in the I don't know if it's the Senate or the
House,
the State House, and they shut it down because some people knew they'd lose money for re-election campaigns and things like that. But those are things that people have to stop. And then I think, and this is, I'm sorry to say this, but I also sometimes feel like there are things that the Democrats push for that actually have a negative impact on the future of this civilization.
For example,
so
you're not going to get in trouble for this.
yeah, well, I hope I'm not getting in trouble. But the thing is, this country, like, let's go back to the issue of immigration. To me, much as immigration is a good thing, I think people should be pushing for having kids as well. You know, and maybe that's not even the best example. Let's say
we are in a population decline.
Right.
If we don't keep having babies.
I think people are pushing for the concept of family abortions, for example.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's dominating the news. It's the abortion, the right to choose. And okay, there is nothing wrong with that if you believe it. But do you also have time to remember that there is an issue with this country's population, and you're competing with another country that has 1.5 billion people? Are you crazy? You sure you're pushing to kill your babies when you're competing with China with 1.5 billion people? Do you think India, as its population grows and it's getting more money and powerful, at some point with 1.3 billion people, do you know how much damage that can be to this, country's influence, across the world? I mean, those are things that, to me, I think at the international level, the US should be very careful. It's okay to push for these, ideas, but remember, you're missing out on something. So if you can talk about abortion, also find time to talk about, hey, let's have kids. Having kids is a good thing, because we do have our adversaries there who are having kids like crazy.
I agree. That's why China got rid of their one-child policy.
Yeah, absolutely. So there's something wrong with that. And what else do they push for? There are a lot of crazy ideas out there.
It seems like it's been recently. Over
Yeah,
the last
I
few
think
years.
they've changed recently. They've changed a lot. But there are a lot of they again claim they're progressive ideas, but I think, and I'm saying this to me as an African who is very conservative. I don't care what you feel about it. I'm gonna die African. I was born African. I have, my tribe has its own cultural norms. We have a tradition. That's how we live our life. Mm-hmm. You can't change me because I came to this country. I'm a US citizen, but I'm first African. I will participate in anything, but if there's anything that infringes on my culture and my tradition, I'm going to have issues with that.
Well, the nice thing too is now that you're an American citizen,
right,
you have this pesky little thing called the First Amendment.
Correct.
So,
right, and that's why I feel free to say this because
right.
But I think humans need to have principles, and there are people who are losing their principles just because, I have to win a re-election. Let me not say it. Just be a human being. Be you. Have principles. If something is wrong, call it for what it is. Don't support it because, if I do this, maybe I'm going to lose this section of people who would vote for me. Who cares? Really?
I agree with you.
For God and my country?
Yeah.
You pushing for something wrong and you okay with it? No. So, I mean, and there are people who I think lie to themselves. The idea of holding, and by the way, let me not even get started, but the thing is, I don't like the concept of holding a group of people hostage. What I've also hated about the Democrat Party is I think they've somehow held Black people hostage. That is wrong. For votes, it's true. I want people to be able to make their own decision without any external pressures.
So when you say hostage, what do you mean?
Well, during elections, when you see elections, they push for fear. The
president literally came right out and said it. He said, if you don't vote for if you don't vote for Joe Biden, then you ain't black.
Right. Things like that should have been condemned. That was completely wrong. He shouldn't have said that. He knew he was wrong, and no one called him out for it. But why would you say someone is not black enough because he's not voting for you? That's
pretty crazy.
It is crazy.
It's unbelievably racist.
It is. And he's got a long history of being a racist, and no one calls him out for that as well. But I'm a little concerned about many of these things, that I think the party is doing, and no one is trying to, at least no one within the party is trying to say, hey, listen, what you're pushing for is not right, Even if it's abortion, go back to statistics. I like to look at the numbers. People talk too much on TV. Look at the numbers. Who are being impacted by abortion? Right? So if you're claiming you're pro-Black people and you're pushing for something that is severely impacting Black people, I don't see any sense in here. You know? So there is, I think we can sit here and make a list of things that I think, the Democrats in particular are pushing for. And the list can be endless.
And that doesn't make you necessarily agree with the Republican Party either.
No, I don't. I don't agree with the Republicans completely. My concern is, I think, on the language of things like immigration, for example. I think the Republicans have to be also careful. They are losing on a group of people that be voting for them. Like I said, many of our families that come from Africa are, they are conservative,
and many from Latin America countries.
Yeah, we're very religious. We strongly believe in family. I mean, everything conservative, it's us. But guess what? When it comes to elections, people are like, yeah, these people they're saying this, they're saying that. We're scared, we're not going to vote for these people, So I think that the language and the tone has to be, I think, lowered a little bit. And they have to talk about legal immigration. And they also have to talk about what? Don't be very negative about people coming from other countries, because one, I think they have to emphasize on the issue of we do have a population issue, and maybe immigration can help with that. Also, people coming from other countries, diversity is a good thing. I don't like the way Democrats push for diversity. That's not how I wanted to see things. Now, Joe Biden, you're the president, you appoint this person, Black, Hispanic. It's not about that. I think also yes, diversity, but is there merit to it? Don't just point Ushu because his skin color is Black. There is something wrong with that. Appoint me to a position because you think I can actually do the job.
I find it racist.
Qualify. Right,
It's racist to me. It's racist to say we're going to hire Ushu just because he's Black.
Right, it's true.
Do you know what I mean? Like it's what do they call that? It's like reverse racism or something weird like that.
It's just racism.
It is, but it's just like it's very bizarre.
It's a horrible business policy to
there's no success
overlook
there.
Like anybody's qualities or like qualifications and stuff like that, just to be like, okay, well, we're going to cut out 75% of the population. We're just going to look at Black females that are queer. And that's what we need to fill this box right now. So let's get everybody else that can fill this spot because we need this label on the bottom of their name.
Isn't it? So that we fill a quota.
Yeah, but there is an alternative to that. If you really want to hire a Black person, look for the one that qualifies. But what I've seen is people are getting hired simply because of their skin color. There's something wrong with that. You're not getting the right people. You're not getting people that are qualified for these jobs. And we've seen it when these people show up in the Senate for confirmations.
Yep.
See what happens. They're being asked questions. They can't answer these questions.
What is a woman?
See? And people are stuck with a question like that's a difficult question.
Yeah, and the people on the stand are like, those people who are getting questions are probably like in their head like, I know what the answer to this is,
but I'm not allowed to say it.
But if I don't say it.
Yeah. I'm going to lose the money from this group of people who come to my office.
Yes.
Maybe women will not vote for me. Really? Do you really have principles?
I think at that moment, no.
You should never sell your soul for a position. I'm not that kind of a guy. I think if I believe something, I will lose anything in my life but to keep my principles alive. Things that I strongly believe in, those are the things that I hold dear. No one will ever take those from me. The people, you lose your career. Let me lose my career. But if me saying something makes me feel happy, to me, that's what is important. You should not be there trying to ruin people's careers because they said something. And that has, you know what? Our governments down there in Africa, including in my own country, that's what they do every day. You say something against the government, you know what? You're going to jail, you're getting shot or something. When you start attacking people, people are now losing their jobs. People are, getting in all kinds of troubles because they said something. You start pretending like there is an absence of the First Amendment. Guess what? You're not different from, these governments in sub-Saharan Africa. It's not. You're not different. You're just doing exactly what they do every day. maybe you're not trying to shoot people, but when you destroy someone's career, for example, when you make someone lose a job because of something they said, I don't know. It's not different from shooting that person to kill.
Yeah, it's an assassination without a bullet.
Yes, it's an assassination without a bullet. Yeah.
You have to go because you have work today.
Yeah, that's right.
Tell me real quick about how many you're trying to explain to me the familial and the cultural structure of the Congolese people in this area.
Mm-hmm.
How many refugees are there? How many in Scranton? Tell me about your community here.
Yeah. So again. So I'm the president of the community. We do have 55 families that live
55 families. How many people is that?
Hold on. You said you're the president of the community.
Yeah.
What does that mean?
So we do have. I'm not a. No, I don't think I'm a Leviathan. I don't like to use that title. I think.
I was just doing it because I was trying to make a joke.
I know, but I prefer maybe saying, I'm the leader of the community, that I think that makes me feel, I carry some responsibility.
Yeah,
you're
benevolent. You're not a dictator.
Correct.
Is it kind of continuing some of that the traditional tribal feel, and being able to bring that piece of home here with you, or still have that?
Or maintain your culture.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. That's so when we came here, when you come to the US, there are a lot of issues that you face. And one is language barrier. Not everyone is able to express themselves because, they're limited in terms of how much English they can speak. So the reason why we came up with the community is just to make sure that, there is someone like myself who is out there speaking on behalf of the community if there is an issue. If people need help and they're not able to get into an office or something, at least they know there is someone they can see and get things done. So that's how we work things out. And again, many of our events that we usually do, sometimes meetings if we have issues or concerns. We also meet during weddings, traditional marriage ceremonies.
Can we go to a wedding?
Yeah, definitely.
I've never been to a non-Christian American wedding.
Yeah, there's actually one coming up. I don't know if it's going to include bride price negotiation because that's the juice of the whole thing. Bride price negotiation.
I want in.
Wait, hold on.
I'm an excellent negotiator.
Bride price negotiation.
Negotiations.
What does that mean?
Yeah.
So basically,
is that like
essentially a dowry?
Yeah, dowry. Yeah. You negotiate on behalf of your daughter, like how much you'll get, tax free.
We should start doing that.
I'll do it right now.
Yeah, you should sell your daughter.
What? No. Well, it's not.
In case my wife is listening,
it's not selling.
No, I'm making a joke. I'm totally making a joke.
There's a marriage arraignment, and correct me if I'm wrong. There's a marriage arraignment, and it's almost the way that the father of the daughter can ensure that she's going to be taken care of.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I like that because it gets tough. You bring your uncles.
See what kind of man you are.
Right. But you have to negotiate. I mean, these people start at 30,000 for a girl. Yeah. That's that high. And then you have to bring it down to, if you're lucky, maybe 20 or 15. So yeah.
Wow. Marriage is a negotiation.
Yeah. You really have to be a good negotiator to get.
But that happens in Congo, Uganda. Like that's not.
Yeah, but I think what people have to understand is when our families come here, somehow they do not have the goats and the cows, and everything is now in terms of dollars. So you're looking at, if you're so lucky, they might get you down to 12,000. But I think it's increasingly. I mean, people are like raising the cost of bride price now. It's getting high.
Well, with inflation.
Yeah, they're adjusting for inflation. Maybe.
Who would have thought that would have affected that?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I guess it does. It does. Makes sense.
But my other concern is, much as I love the culture and the tradition, if you're paying 15,000, well, not paying, but if you're giving 15,000 for your wife, your future wife, you should tax that money. This money is tax free, and I have a little bit of an issue with that. If it's an income that is getting into a house, tax it. But I don't know what get it started because I really want to see them
no,
getting
we don't have to
taxed.
talk about
We invited ourselves to a wedding is what happened.
Yeah, that's what we wanted to do.
Yeah.
But now that I'm like, he's like, no, I think you
I
should
would prefer
tax
to go
them.
to the
How much
negotiation.
for the women?
Yeah.
You know,
Wait, how much for the wedding?
That's from Blues Brothers.
That's what it was.
If we're doing 20, like, yeah, pay 10% tax on that.
So just tell me real quick about like your community. I know that like you were telling me that like your dad does like the community has a garden and you guys grow like just tell me like I'd love to meet them.
Right.
I'd love to I don't know if I don't know if they'd be amenable to that, but I would just love meeting new people, man.
Right.
Yeah.
People are consumed by jobs. Many of our families work long shifts. You know, many of them work at TJ Maxx. There are those that work at.
But you couldn't hack it at TJ Maxx.
Yeah,
You got fired.
I got kicked out in 3 weeks. Yeah. But I don't regret living. I don't think I liked working there anyway. So yeah, but we now we have World Refugee Day coming up.
When's that?
That's I think sometime in June. I should send you the date once.
absolutely.
Once
Is there
I
like an
confirm
event for that?
Yeah, it's an event. Yeah, so many of our families will come, and it's usually a good day to meet people and like just tell stories.
Where will that
and
be?
It's probably going to be at New York Park.
Hell yeah, we'll go there.
That's right by my house.
Oh, okay. So yeah, I'll be there. So
What
if
can
you
we
guys
bring?
show up.
My son owns a hot dog cart. I'll bring the hot dog cart.
Bring
I don't
hot
know if
dog.
can you guys, is that a,
Yeah, people
you guys
do-
eat
people
hot
do
dogs?
hot dogs, yeah. People do
okay.
that.
I didn't know if that was like a pork, I don't know.
No, it's all beef.
It's all
Okay.
beef. Yeah, but even pork. I mean, they're not Muslim.
They're Catholic,
dude,
not
what-
Muslim.
I don't know.
They're
This
mostly.
is why we're talking to Ushu.
they're
We
mo-
just don't eat fish
they're
on
mostly,
Fridays.
They're
Yeah.
mostly Catholic and Protestants. Yeah,
So we can bring stuff?
you can bring stuff. Yeah, absolutely.
Oh, this would be awesome.
Mm-hmm.
So
So-
is it like late in February, mid-February? We don't know.
No, this
Dan,
no,
is there a
said it's in
this
June.
This June.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Why did I say
in,
February?
in 2 or 3 weeks from now, I'll shoot you the date.
Okay.
Once we confirm
Yeah, we'd
with the
love to
group.
go. Well, at least I would. I don't care
I'm
about
coming.
these guys.
I'm coming.
Yeah, and then
Trump.
there is I think we do have I really hope there is bride price negotiations. Usually that's the juice of the whole thing. There is a
At World Refugee Day, there's a
traditional marriage. There's also traditional marriage coming up in July, so that's another good thing to attend.
I would love.
Where will the wedding be?
So it's not the wedding, but it's the traditional ceremony,
Mhm.
marriage ceremony. So both families, I think, will be talking about how much they're gonna get for the girl, and yeah,
I would love. I would love. No judgment. I would love to be there.
yeah, well, yeah.
But I don't want to invite myself to a wedding.
I do.
Well,
I'll crash a wedding. I don't care.
I can go if you both.
we'll bring gifts.
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
Is that traditional?
Yeah, you can bring gifts too.
Okay. Yeah. Awesome.
But
I know a place where we can get
I'll
some good
have to
wedding
find out
gifts.
if there is the negotiation because to me I like it.
Yeah.
There is some stories and
I'd love to see that.
people argue. Yeah.
Yeah. Will you interpret for me? Can I sit by
Yeah,
you so
yeah.
you can tell me what's going
Yeah.
on? All right. So,
And
I-
if she's virgin, you get extra money. So yeah.
how much is that worth?
Why?
Well, used car, new car,
So okay. So if 12.
That's going to be the thing that gets us canceled right there. That's the one.
And I didn't say it. So, okay. So I'm just trying to understand.
Right.
So you said roughly it's around 12,000.
That's like cheap.
Yeah, he
Yeah,
said
but
around
that's it.
20.
Oh, so 20, right?
Yeah,
so
it
what
has
would,
gone up.
you said virgin. So what would that increase the price or would that lower?
Yeah,
the,
that would increase the price. Yeah, if a parent came and like, yeah, my daughter's virgin, yeah, that's
we as
extra.
Americans, like we don't have these, like for our dad to be like, if I was an American girl and grew like, can you imagine my sister in the negotiation when my dad's like, "Are you a virgin?" and she's like, "Yes," and then they're like, "You're not."
No,
We know you're not.
No. First of all, no.
How does that work?
It's the parents that have the call. If the parent, they may screw you up and just like, yeah, she's
Yeah, yeah.
virgin, and
Yeah.
you're paying extra.
But
money.
you will find out eventually whether
Well,
that's true.
Well, I don't know. I don't know the truth to that, but yeah, if the parents throw in that she's virgin, you're paying extra money for it.
I'm happy we ended on this.
This is a really good topic.
This is great. This
I'm
is
happy
great.
we ended on virgin purchases. I there was a couple of times during this
Mhm.
when you were talking, and I had to pull myself back from getting emotional
Right.
because I don't have the context or concept of what you have gone through, and I think you're incredibly you're brilliant. I think you're a brilliant person. I think you're a very smart, empathetic, thoughtful person.
Thank you.
And I think you know a lot about things that a lot of people don't know about. And I'm very grateful that you are here. I'm very grateful that we're friends. And I'm very grateful that, people like you, and don't take this the wrong way, give me hope for the future.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's everything that America should be. It's everything that America was meant to be. We will take everybody who's awesome.
Yeah.
And I think you're awesome.
And I think that's a good thing about America. It welcomes everybody. Sometimes the politics gets a little tense, but America welcomes everybody, and I think that gives it a pool of talent to pull from and get things done. And again, that's what I was saying. I think people have to be very careful in how they're discussing things like immigration, because there are a lot of good people out there in different parts of the world that if they come to this country, they're playing a significant role that is going to help advance this country. Almost every aspect of life, whether it's technology, whether it's just making sure that the democracy is protected. There are a lot of things. But the point that I really want to emphasize on is, I think the U.S. When it looks at its foreign policy, that has to change, and the U.S. has to, just like China, invest in these countries. They should stop regime changes. They should stop pushing for democracy to places where people somehow are still behind in terms of understanding. I think responsibility towards whatever government is in place, and invest in infrastructure, help these governments out, and maybe the rest will play out with time. But the idea of going to replace a government with the other, it's not going to help. I've seen a lot of people change their perception on President Kagame of Rwanda. He kills people. He's horrible. I'm scared of the guy. And I'll be scared to go in Rwanda because friends have told me, you come here, don't talk about politics, just keep your mouth shut. You'll go to jail. But many Americans are doing business with him. Visa is out there. They open banks. People have debit cards and everything. Kigali is becoming, the darling of Africa. Beautiful city. Many businesses from London are moving into Kigali. It's becoming a very, important part within the continent. But he's a dictator. And no one is saying, well, Kagame is killing people. So I think that, to me, I think that's a step in the right direction, and it should continue with other countries. I also think, individual Americans have to go back to, not going back, but have to go to the continent and, establish businesses. If you do have something that you think you can do, things have changed. If you're looking at movies, the King Kong and the rest, there are things you can do. And instead of sending contraceptives to us, do something better, So all these things, the realities on ground, and to me, I think there are people who always want to make this country, go backwards, like mentioned, but there is a potential and there is a lot of good that this country comes with. And regardless of your feelings and the way you look at things, try to appreciate how much this country has come from, and put value to it. Again, you can help, like the way the U.S. helps, whether it's humanitarian assistance, whether it's refugee resettlement, whether it's allowing immigrants to come in. All these things are good. But remember, you have a country. That should be the number one. You have a country, and there is no country without an economy. There is no country without a clear national security policy that protects it, from enemies within and
foreign
out.
and domestic.
Foreign and domestic, yeah. So thinking you will sacrifice your national security for assistance is not the right way to do things. You can only do much if you're safe and you're secure. So yes, People should always do things, but again, national security should remain a priority, because the only reason why I came here is because my country failed me. It failed to protect me, and now I'm here. If I was safe in the Congo, I would not be here. But I wasn't safe there. I lost my mom. That's why I'm here. I don't want the same thing to happen here. So unless people reach that level of understanding, I think we'll continue to have these clashes, and whether it's on immigration or other issues, and it's not going to help anybody. This country is only good with the dollar, of the value of the dollar, being that high, and also good with this country being secure, with people knowing that if the president is replaced in Washington, D.C., no war is going to break out, which is completely different from where I come from. I come from a place where if a president is replaced today, there is gunfire and people will die and things will go wrong, So yeah, I mean, to be honest, again, people have to be free to say things. I don't like, feeling like my mouth is being shut because if I say something, I'm gonna get in trouble. Why should someone be feeling like that? That's how things have changed in one of the parties. And if you say things, you label something, and the next day you lose your job. That should not be happening to people. People are being labeled racist for anything, basically. If you said something, even if
I ate a Chick-fil-A.
Yeah, that's a
You're
problem.
now racist.
How? So there are a lot of things that have to change. Again, it goes back to conversation. Like I keep telling people, don't take that race conversation on TV. Push it to the families. Let people have these discussions in the house. If you've never invited a black family in your home, invite them. Share a meal together, tell stories. Let your kids know it's okay to have black people in your house. Don't go play it around on TV, because I've seen a lot of people on TV saying things, but these people are not practical at all. They just say things on TV, and once they leave, there's something else. You're not looking for solutions. I usually tell people in South Africa, for example, they had, the issue of apartheid for a long time. But how did it end? They called for a Truth and Reconciliation Commission, chaired by Bishop Desmond Tutu. They sat down, people talked about race, and I'm not saying it's perfect, but, I think in South Africa, people say things and not have to worry about getting in trouble, like it is here in the US. But here in the US, I think most of the conversation is played on TV, but outside TV, there is nothing, So people need to have these, discussions in the house. I think it's the only way to get things done. Because to me, I think a family is, it's not even a thought. I think that's the truth. A family is the smallest unit of any political organization. And as a result, if you want to be effective, start it from there. But unfortunately, I think people feel comfortable saying some things to an audience, and with zero, I think. I mean, like, there is no one who is going to follow up and be like, yeah, you said this, but what have you done? If you tell us things on TV, we need to see results. We need to see results. And maybe, can you give us examples of what you're doing as far as whatever you said on TV? So people should stop playing around with these things. This country has come from far. A lot of things have changed. This is not the 1800s or the 1700s. And people have to appreciate that that much of change that this country has gone through. So, yeah.
I can't. Go ahead, say your words.
When did you become an American citizen? What year?
So I became a citizen in, hold on, was that last year, actually?
Yeah?
Yeah.
Just last year.
Last year. I think I was sworn in and had my certificate of naturalization in August of last year, August 9th.
So this is like
you have
10 months ago.
Yeah, like 10 months ago, yeah.
So you have a anniversary coming up.
Yeah. So
I think we need to throw a party.
Yay!
Can we throw our first your 1 year American birthday?
Something, yeah.
Yeah, let's do that.
I'll be 1 year old American.
On that note, do you got any final thoughts?
Listen, man, I've said this before. I rank all of these podcasts as far as my favorite, and this one's right up there.
There we go. Time's up.
I mean, listen, you weren't in the CIA, and you didn't let me ask you questions about aliens. So Sam will always be number one, but I think you might be number two.
Number two.
I think you might be number two.
Number one is spies, aliens. Number two is bride sales.
Yes. Yes. Hey, and I know you said, at your heart, you're always going to be African, man, but I think we're going to keep you on this one over here in America.
Well, yeah, I'll stay, but I also have plans of going back to run for office there. So.
Oh, really?
We'll see how that plays out.
We want to go with you.
Can I do your campaign?
Definitely.
I would love to. I'm like, I know nothing about this place, but let's do it like we do in America. Next thing you'll hear is, I'm like, all right, I'm out. Honestly, I have nothing but the highest respect for you.
Yeah.
So I want to say thank you for being an honest person. I want to say thank you for being. There are a lot of people who go through 0.1% of you went through, and they give up.
Yeah.
You have fortitude. You have conviction. You have faith. You have joy. I hope. Well, 70% less. But I'm happy you met these two clowns because I think now we're gonna have some fun.
They're not.
They trust me. So, Ushu, good man. Dan, you want to say it?
What a week.